Any day now. Any day. No, seriously, Shot. Any day now. What's up, Nerf Nation? It's your boy Normatico, and welcome to Secondhand Blasters. Today we're going to be reviewing a new launch from the minds at X-Shot, Zuru Toys, which is based out of New Zealand. We are looking at, of course, their X-Shot AEB. Now, I do apologize for it being a delayed launch of the video. Unfortunately, I wanted to recreate what it felt like having to wait for this blaster to launch. Because, of course, some reviewers were lucky enough to get this way before Maryland Mayhem launched. And then X-Shot apparently screwed the pooch with the release because they did not tell them, hey, don't do your videos until after Maryland Mayhem. And all of us were left wondering, well, when the hell is that blaster actually going to launch? After a couple of months of delays, it has finally reached the U.S. Thank you for your tariffs, wonderful dear leader. Seriously. Anyways, I'm not trying to make this political. However, that is what X-Shot gave as the excuse as to why it did not launch in the U.S. earlier, is because they were worried about the tariffs. So that being said, we have it now, and it is at the normal price that was originally promised of $70. Now, I actually picked this one up. It was about $72.99 at Target, right around $78.99 after taxes and whatnot. But that being said, let's take a look at the box. Now, unlike other X-Shot blasters, this box is a completely sealed blaster, which is kind of nice. Yeah, and they even do say right here, there's a little badge that basically says this is the best X-Shot blaster ever. Yeah, we'll put that one to the test. So, it does come with a total of 40 darts and just one magazine. Now, I want to address one thing because a lot of people have actually been questioning this. Why just one magazine? Frankly, I feel like this is one of those blasters that if you're not already in the hobby, you're not going to pick up. But if you are already in the hobby, you should have plenty of magazines to go around, because this should take technically the X-Shot magazines as well as the worker mags, and possibly even some other types. Apologies if you guys heard anything in the background, but unfortunately the puppy was playing with her toy and it was really loud. But that being said, let's get back to the review. Now, it should take technically any of the magazines that are available, with the exception of maybe the Dart Zone ones, but we will go ahead and actually put this all to the test here shortly. Let's go ahead and actually get this box opened up. So normally I don't save boxes, but this one seems pretty heavy duty, so we'll probably keep it just in case. Who knows? Do I feel form-fitting plastic in here? I do. That is something I like. Well then, I guess that X-Shot took a page out of Dart Zone's book, because of course we do have a form-fitting mold. Let's go and actually pan the camera down and we'll see what this looks like. Alright, so I apologize that it is a little bit long, but we have, of course, the blaster, and it has this really cool thing here. Yeah, I like the design. This is like the reskin of the X-Shot long shot. I'm okay with the way it looks. I'm actually really fond of this. We do have some eye protection that is wrapped in a little cellophane baggie. And these are not glasses friendly technically, but they are comfortable. They're not too bad. Set these over to the side for now. You of course have your barrel here, which is an orange anodized aluminum barrel. That's kind of nice. I'm glad that they went with aluminum and not with plastic. Looks like it is chamfered on both sides, so that's good. And it does come with what they call a roller scar. Now, what the difference is between a roller scar and a B car, I'm not entirely sure. We will find out. Yep, that looks to be just a B car. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like it has 12 bearings on it. So that should provide some nice accuracy and a nice little spin. Solid piece of plastic. I will say that that feels like it is a... Is that metal? I can't tell if those are metal bearings or plastic bearings from this distance. We'll probably find out shortly, but that's pretty neat. Of course, I'll just slip on the barrel like so. Of course, we do have our sights here. Now, the iron sights are pretty basic. It would have been nice had they added some like fiber optic filament to that, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Again, that's just my wish list, not a mandatory thing. I'm not going to go re yet, but take those out. We have our battery charger over here in this little compartment, and it is, oh, it's one of these. Great. Now, which one this is, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure if this is a Dean's or if it's a JST connector. Point is, I'm not excited about this. I mean, yeah, at least it comes with a charger, but I was hoping for an XT30. Which means that the battery must be somewhere around here, maybe. Now we have our darts. Pretty darts. They're different than the actual Dart Zone Pro darts. At least different colors. We have our instructions. Our magazine, which looks really sharp with this pink, and I like the mag bumper here. That's nice. I hope that Zuru decides to actually release these and print them. And it looks to be Talon compatible, so that's nice. That's an upgrade over the BK1S. And then we have our blaster. Now, let's get this blaster out of this shell here. Let's pry it up. Ooh, that's heavy. That's very heavy. All right. Let's just move this down for now. And then we have a wrapper here that has for instructions with a QR code, which is kind of cool. Okay, this comes off like this. I guess this is definitely one way to see if the blaster's been tampered with, which is kind of nice. I dig that. That prevents you from picking up one and someone saying, oh, it's brand new. And then you open up, you're like, no, 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 it's been played with. So we're going to break the seal because this one's mine. Not yours, it's mine. Let me take that off now. Okay, so there's that. But that is the actual blaster itself. I'll probably undo this collet like so. I've not read the instructions. I'm just, you know, going based on what's logical. All right, and we slip our barrel in. Of course, we would want to go ahead and actually put this back on the barrel. If I can be honest, I'm probably going to design a barrel shroud. I do know that Joe from Xbox Games has probably designed something, as is Tag. I had spoken with Tag about possibly selling his designs on my store. However, he has released the files to print. I'm probably going to design my own, honestly, because I do not really like how long this barrel is without a shroud. I feel like this might, I don't know, inadvertently stab somebody. So, looks like you do have an on-off button here for a priming handle. That's kind of cool. Mag release. Now, the magazine compatibility of this thing, that works obviously with the provided magazine. I'm going to grab one of my worker magazines. Actually, first let's try a Dart Zone mag. Let's see if it fits in here. From an Omnia. It looks like it does fit in here. The question is, will it feed? We'll test with that later on. So it does work with the Omnia magazines. That's kind of cool. I like cross-compatibility with magazines. Now, if it works with those, then I see no reason why it should not work with a worker magazine. Now, this is a banana, and it looks like it fits in there and clips in properly. So it does gravity drop, which is kind of cool. Let's test out the X-Shot magazine. That does gravity drop as well. Dart Zone. And that certainly does gravity drop. So I'm digging the fact that it does gravity drop the magazines. And yeah, let's go and actually change our view here so we can see more about this blaster. So You know what? All in all, the blaster does feel comfortable in my hands, and it does have a pretty thick grip. That's a bigger grip than normal, but for an adult hand, this feels good. You know, I thought that I would not like not having an actual foregrip on this thing, but that feels really nice right there. Oh, that's wonky. Okay, we do have a buffer tube stock, and it does twist on and off. So there's that at least. And that is pretty decent. Let me see, because I do shoot left-handed. Yeah, that feels really comfortable in my hands. I dig this. I dig this. The plastic itself, it's very solid. That's different from normal X-Shot plastic. There's a little bit of give on the buttstock, but not too much. It's not as bendy as normal. So kudos on X-Shot for finally fixing their plastic issue. Let's go ahead and actually put our sights on here. And yeah, we can load up that way. You know, X-Shot rail, it's kind of decent. So there we have it. You know, those sights, oh, that's going to be fun. You know, I will point out that one thing about the sights, and hopefully you can see it in the camera here, I do dig that not only do you have the rear iron sights, the little two brackets here, but you also have the target reticule, and then that just lines up perfectly with the front tip of the iron sight. So this is really cool. I'm really appreciating that. There's our, okay, so there's a charging handle there. That is kind of stiff. That is a very stiff priming on the pull handle, so there's that. And we do have a jam door here. Now, I just noticed something about the jam door, and I'm going to point it out here. I'm curious as to why they did this, but there's a little screw here. So it does not do it any favor by having a screw on the jam door, because if you jam up in battle, you want to be able to open it up quickly, clear out the jam, and then go forth. So that being said, why they chose to screw it closed, I do not know. X-Shot, you have a lot of explaining to do regarding that one, because you're busting out your own blaster so far. I mean, this thing better be perfect at this point. And mind you, it's not that there's a problem with the jam door. If it works, it works. But if it's something that does jam up, and you guys screwed close the jam door, that's a problem. That's a big problem. I get it that you want to do it for safety reasons. You don't want to have a kid hurt themselves, but this is not for 8 and up. This is clearly marked 14 and up. And given the price point, I'm hesitant as a parent to buy this for anyone under the age of 14. So, yeah. Now, the battery, though, that's what I'm trying to see here. Because if this works at all like the BK1, battery should be stored here. Now, okay, so they did something different here, and I should have probably flipped the blaster upside down. I would have seen it, but that right there should release the door to the battery. So it is in the buttstock, and that's fine. It's set up very similar to like the buttstock that I use in my Krakuda builds. So yeah, chonky battery. This wiring, I'm not again not a fan of. Not a fan of this connector. Let's see if we can actually fix this. I'm gonna untwist this buttstock real quick. See if we can get it to come apart and adjust it properly again. All right, so we got that fixed, kind of. Oh, that's a snap in the plastic. That's not good. Let's just undo that real quick. That's as tight as it's going to get then. So that being said, as you can see, untwisting it, not the smartest idea. It did not want to thread properly back in there, so it may be something I'm doing wrong, but I'm a grown-ass man who's threaded, unthreaded buffer tubes in real life, so I doubt that that's what it was. That may be a design issue with the buttstock itself, but that's okay because you don't really need to take that buffer tube out in order to get to the battery. So the fact that there's a little bit of slack there and it's going to extend outward a little bit more just gives it some more reach. I don't think that I'm going to lose stability on this because this does feel like a pretty thick tube. However, I can honestly say that I wish. What the heck happened there? Oh yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem indeed. I can honestly say that I wish they would have put a stronger material for that buffer tube. It is plastic, but I feel like it could be a little stronger. Now, let's go ahead and actually see if this battery comes with any charge at all whatsoever. If it does, that'd be great. If not, that's fine too. Let's see what we got here. Charging handle on. Okay, so it goes from off to semi-auto. Nice, single fire. And then full auto. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of nice that it does have a charge. Of course, we're going to actually put this to charge completely. And then we're actually going to go ahead and put this through its testing. Because, yeah. Now, one thing I will point out, though, like I said, this right here, this connector is a problem for me. I'm not a fan of these connectors. I feel as if we were to switch this out to an XT30, it would be much easier to plug in and plug out. Not to mention this would enable for us to actually fit a 3S LiPo because, again, we run with LiPos in the hobby. This is essentially an IMR battery, and that's fine. I've never had a problem with IMRs, but when it comes to replacing it, I want to be able to run LiPo. And also, this is 7.4 volts, so it's essentially a 2S. I want to do a 3S. Let's see if that'll increase. It's not going to increase the FPS count necessarily, but it should increase the DPS count, which is the important number here, especially when it comes to full auto. So yeah, that being said, we're going to stop filming real quick while I get this charged up, and then we'll be back with the chronograph test. All right, it's a beautiful summer day here in Central Ohio, and we are out to do a range test with the AEB, or the Piston Pump by X-Shot, also as it is now being colloquially called the PP. Yes, we're going to play with our PP out in public. So we got this now loaded. Of course, now, once you load the magazine, you want to actually pull it back on the charging handle. That helps it to prime, so you don't have to worry about cycling the blaster. You can actually cycle the blaster without the priming mechanism. That just means that you're going to dry fire it once before it actually fires the dart. So let's do this. One straight shot, one angled shot. That got some distance. Let's go test to see just how far these X-Shot darts can go. All right, well, with the straight shot, we measured exactly 120 feet. with the angled shot, and I do not feel any actual ground wind, but I'm sure that there's probably a light breeze when you actually get to altitude. But we measured the angle shot at 180 feet. So there might have been a little bit of wind, but negligible. That being said, an impressive performance by this X-Shot AEG. Up next, we're going to do an outdoor, I should say, rate of fire test. We're going to load up this magazine with as many darts as we can that can fit. This is a 15-round magazine, and we're going to see how long it takes to unload the magazine in full auto. All right, we're now switching to full auto. I've already primed the blaster. We're going to see how quickly we can unload this magazine. 15 shots. Okay. All right, so I'm back with my final thoughts regarding the X-Shot PP or the AMB, the AEB. Anyways, and I'll be honest with you, I've had it for a week now. I've played with it every single day. Um, I've played with my PP every single day. Yeah, say that again. Anyway, you know what? I'm very fond of this blaster. It is pretty fun. The performance in it is spot on. I have beaten the numbers that other people are getting with this blaster stock. I've not done any upgrades to this except for a barrel upgrade. This, of course, is the stock barrel for video purposes. However, I am able to run it with a 12-inch worker barrel, and that gives it a nominal boost in performance. I was popping in the 190 ranges as opposed to the 180s. So, you know, with a 12-inch barrel, you're right there in that sweet spot. But the glaring issue with this blaster that I have, and again, this is just an aesthetic thing, it is ugly in the front. It's pretty in the back side. You know, you have the skin here, but in the front side, you have this exposed barrel, which, you know, the anodized barrel is nice, but again, when it's such a skinny little barrel, it doesn't look that good. Now, there are barrel shroud upgrades for this. Because of the fact that you can actually swap out this barrel, obviously that collet is nice because it can twist off, but you can do a quick swap with this. Now, there are barrel shrouds that have been created by other designers. However, one of the things that's universal about them is that they do require some hardware, some M3 screws in order to mount them in. But that being said, through the Big Blaster Consortium and designed by yours truly, we have this barrel shroud, which I'm calling the SOCOM X1. Now, this barrel shroud, unlike other barrel shrouds, it is completely friction fit. You thread the barrel through, collet stays on there like so, and you just pull back, and it just clicks into place. Now, that is because of the 3D printed plastic. However, over time, when you take it on and off, you might find that the plastic does, shall we say, become much smoother and doesn't click into place, which is why the design on this particular shroud, which is very unique and very ingenious, if you ask me, is that the retaining mechanism is something that already comes with the blaster, because that fits flush to the very tip of the barrel shroud, and you get the performance numbers with your barrel shroud and your B-car as well as if it was without. And then, of course, this shroud, you just slide it in, and as you can see, your rail goes all the way up. Now, you do have an additional 3 rails. You have the top rail, which ends up a little bit short, but you have the side rails as well as a bottom rail. So if you wish to go ahead and actually add a 40 max launcher down here or some sort of master key system, you can. If you wanted to attach a light or a laser pointer, you can go ahead and do so. Or if you wanted to add an extra magazine holder here as well, you can. The options are endless and they are yours. Now, with this particular design, which this is one that I do print out myself and I will be selling on my store. This is approximately a $20 print. You actually have the following add-ons for it. Again, in addition to the rail design, you will let me know what color scheme you want on it. This one, as you can see, I matched the colors of the X-Shot as best as I could with the actual pattern itself. If you take the rails off, which these rails are just held on by actual pegs, very similar to something out of a Lidl. But if you were to take those off, you would see that there's a red and blue stripe that goes all the way along. And as you can see, it does wrap around to the front of the blaster itself. And of course, you know, we matched the white with the black trim, so it looks really sharp. Of course, if you did not wish to do that, we could go ahead and actually change those colors around, make it one solid color. But just shoot the message to the Big Blaster Consortium at Etsy, and you can place that order. Again, that is a $20 print. With additional customization, it would be $25. And there is one more little bit of customization that is possible. Now, when I designed this file, I intentionally left this side plate empty. The default, of course, would be that it says XS-AEB, as in X-Shot AEB. But with a empty plate, it allows me to go ahead and actually customize this. So if you had a moniker that you use on the battlefield, I can go ahead and actually put your name on here to identify the blaster as yours. Now, that is how you correct that theme. And as you can see, it looks much better with that shroud on. Now, the other issues that I have with this blaster, and again, this is quality of life. This is improvements that could be made to it, and I believe that there may be somebody out there that is working on this. The nylon gear mechanism in this blaster means that when it comes to spring upgrades, you're limited as to what you can get. Currently, Out of Darts has an upgrade spring that allows it to hit into the 200 range. However, I have heard that people have attempted to use a classic Nexus Pro upgrade spring. I believe that would be the 1.8 upgrade spring, and they were actually able to hit into the high 200s with it until the blaster broke. Now, the reason that the blaster broke, obviously, is the gear mechanism. Unfortunately, it does not use metal gears, which is what people suspected they might be doing. However, as I've told many people in the past, you're not going to get aluminum or steel gears in a blaster that is $72. That's going to increase the price astronomically. That being said, there is the possibility that a designer out there that we know and love in the community maybe making steel springs, or should I say steel gears, so you can actually upgrade this and run the hotter springs. The other flaw in the blaster that has been pointed out by countless others in the community, and you kind of saw it in my beginning video, is the actual tube back here for the stock. Yeah. The buffer tube itself, it is a little bit clunky, it is a little bit weak. It does move if you put a little bit of weight on here. You know, it twists side to side. Now, I resolved that by untwisting just slightly and then twisting back until you hear a click. And then twisting again. Now, I'm not going to want to break that. There we go. There's that click. And that should not move. Now, that allows you to go ahead and actually move this backward and forth. You can try to tighten this nut and just adjust it that way so it doesn't move, but we've not had much success with that in the community, so that's a major complaint. I believe that we may see an upgrade to this buffer tube. This is something that could definitely work with an aluminum threaded tube. And the other quality of life upgrade, which even though I've not seen any complaints about this yet so far, and again, I'm not noticing anything yet, is the plastic pull handle here. So this priming handle, you know, it's great because you can actually prime the blaster prior to you firing the trigger for the first time when you load up a magazine. That way you actually fire a dart the first time as opposed to needing it to cycle through. Now, the problem with this, though, is it is plastic. And X-Shot has a history of using recycled plastic. This does not feel as flimsy as their other blasters do when it comes to the plastic for the pull handle. But, again, when you have a history of things, you kind of give me question to pause. And there is talk that this may be something that goes in aluminum, as well as possibly the trigger itself. So other than that, though, this blaster, again, it is a 9.5 out of 10 stars. I cannot complain about this blaster at all, and I want to. I want to be able to hate on it because of the fact that it's the current meta. And I know that makes me sound like a hater, but it's my job as a reviewer to critique things. And outside of the things I pointed out, I can't really critique it. So you're probably going to wonder if you need this if you already have a BK1S or a BK2 or whichever one of the BKs. I'll be honest with you. If you were to get rid of your BK1S, and I do have a BK1, okay, and I think it's really cool, the BK1S, I see a couple of flaws that it has that is not found here. For starters, let's talk about magazine compatibility. The BK1S had the proprietary magazine. Now, yes, you can 3D print parts so that it is Talon compatible. However, when it's native Talon compatible already out the box, you're going to win hands down, especially when it's about $30 less. So for $30 less of the BK1S, you are able to get actually $30 less than a BK, the original BK, which is on sale on Amazon. You are able to get a blaster that is Talon compatible, performs better, does not have the flaw in it that you have to use fresh darts every single time, and the performance on it, the FPS numbers are comparable, if not sometimes a little better. So, hands down, X-Shot's going to get my business. Now, I've heard tell, the rumor has it, if you will, the scuttlebutt, is that the BK production team or design team actually went to X-Shot and they helped with the design of this blaster. So basically, it is a perfected BK1S. And that being said, I can honestly see it because the fire mechanism on it and just the way it feels, the ergo, it screams the BK1. So, I'm willing to give it that rumor credit. So, yeah, again, it's a perfect blaster. There's no real complaints about this. Now, what I will say though, and I should say one more note because the blaster does not know the audience that it's for. Now, I don't fault the blaster. I don't fault X-Shot. They designed a blaster that is pro-level performance, that hits the numbers it needs to hit. It's an AEB, and it's at a great price point. The problem comes into play is that the majority of games where hobbyists and enthusiasts play in, they fall into one of three categories. You have, of course, the 150 rounds, you have the 250 rounds, and then occasionally there's some people out there that play in a 200 round. Now, this blaster is way too spicy for a 150 round. It's also too spicy for HVZ without a barrel modification. Speaking of which, you can actually put a much shorter barrel here. I believe it's a 6-inch barrel to get HVZ numbers. And if you put something even shorter than that, someone has recorded that it's around 100 FPS. I don't know why you would do that, but whatever. So the problem, though, is that stock, this exists between games. What do I mean? If you're too spicy for 150, but you're not quite there for 200 or for 250, certainly not for 250, who is this blaster for? Because I can't run it as is in a 150 hard cap game unless I'm using super used darts, and even then I might be just a little spicy on a hard cap. So with a soft cap, I can actually switch down to Nerf Pro darts, where even fresh darts, the most that I'm getting was around averaging 162, 165. But certainly if I use the standard darts, which are hobby standard, you're hitting the 170 all the way up to the 180 range, which again, that falls in the too hot for TV, not spicy enough for pay-per-view kind of a thing. So, that is the one note on this blaster. However, again, FPS doesn't mean everything when it comes to the hobby. You can actually run lighter than what the cap is and still be successful if you know what you're doing. So, with a skilled player, this is technically still competitive, but by the numbers, it's not. When it comes to somebody running against you with a full auto flywheel, you are going to have the accuracy over them 110%. What you're not going to have is the dart volume per second. Because again, it is barely hitting 4 darts per second with the 2S, I should say the 16500 lithium polymer batteries, lithium ion battery pack that it has. And you do get a nominal rate of fire increase, I've been told, when you actually switch it to a 2S LiPo. However, there have been complaints that when you try to put it with a 3S, you're going to have a bad day because it's going to burn things out. Now, I do plan on still doing the XT30 conversion to it, only because that way I can use several different lithium-ion batteries as well as a 2S LiPo on here, and I should be good to go regarding that. So there you have it. That's pretty much my review regarding the X-Shot PP, the piston pump, or the AEB, whatever you wish to call it. There you have it. It is $72.99 at Target, and I believe that it has now been released all across the U.S. It was slow to roll out, but now that it's finally here, you know what? I'm glad I got it. And again, 2025 X-Shot, I will tell you that you have, shall we say, made a statement. And that statement is, if you're talking about pro-level blasters, you better start saying our name. And yeah, between this and the Fury X, we're saying your name in 2025. I want to thank y'all for watching. Until next time, y'all, keep on blasting.